All right, guys. First, I'm going to say if you are not in our Dynasty Discord chat, what are you doing? I mean, it's completely free. That's where over, I believe, 500 or 600 Dynasty players are right now. That's where trade questions are being discussed, draft strategies, and it's a great resource, a lot better than any mock draft ADP that you're going to be able to find because these are real Dynasty players asking real Dynasty questions. So go down there. Link is in the description, completely free. And today we are going to go to the video suggestions tab. This is behind a paywall. This is our patron side, but nonetheless, we are going to talk about Sleep Wiz's question, getting us to compare Josh Jacobs to Dobbins, Taylor, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I thought it'd be more interesting if we just compare the two classes in general, the 2019 running back draft class versus the 2020 running back draft class. Let's get into the video.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, this is going to be a fun video. We're going to compare the 2019 rookie running back class to the 2020 rookie running back class and see the drastic difference between the two classes. I know everyone always loves to say, oh, the next class is better. Whatever the rookie class is coming in, everybody loves to look at college and go, oh, guys, the 2021 wide receiver class is going to be better. Everyone has that take every single season, but we look at the 2019 and the 2020, and I'm going to do this by looking at how we had them ranked a year ago today, not necessarily my own rankings, but kind of the community rankings, how most people had these running backs ranked in 2019, and then compare them to 2020. We're going to talk about the profiles that each of these guys have, and maybe this can enlighten us of why some guys busted in 2019, why we maybe just overvalued some guys, or maybe some of these 2020 guys are bound to disappoint. So let's start it off with 2019. The first running back off the board, almost consensus, was Josh Jacobs. I was pretty much one of the only people to have Miles Sanders as my RB1 before the NFL draft. Most people had him actually outside their top 5 running backs. But once Josh Jacobs went in the first round of the NFL draft and Miles Sanders fell to the end of the second, you had to move Josh Jacobs up to your number 1 spot. And most people did. I don't know how many people had anybody else here other than Josh Jacobs at the 1 spot. Pretty much consensus. Now at 2, this was a highly debated conversation the entire offseason. Pretty much half the community had Miles Sanders. The other half had David Montgomery. I was strongly in the Miles Sanders camp for a multitude of reasons. I'm glad that worked out because that was one of my strongest stances in 2019. Obviously, besides that Chris Godwin was overrated and Corey Davis was going to be a superstar. Hey, at least I got Miles Sanders over David Montgomery right. Now here at 3, most people had David Montgomery if they did not take him here at 2. The problem with David Montgomery is he just profiled to never really be able to have any explosive plays. In college, he never had a run where he scored outside of the red zone, and that's something that you don't want to see for your running back. Yes, most runs are going to be 4 to 5 yards, but it's those 80-yard runs that maybe happen twice or 3 times in a season that really show that that running back has the potential to win you any given fantasy week. If not, they just have to be fueled by opportunity, which David Montgomery was in 2019, yet he was not able to do anything with it. And we see this with his fantasy points per game. Now, let's go to 4, Darrell Henderson. And oh my gosh, guys, I whiffed on Darrell Henderson. I ended up taking him in the first round of multiple rookie drafts. Here we are a year later. Oh, great news, Todd Gurley's gone. But they go out there and they take a Cam Akers in the second round, which was actually their first selection in the NFL draft. So Darrell Henderson, what looked to be an extremely explosive running back in Memphis, who was probably one of the most efficient running backs that we've seen at the college level in an extremely long time, looks like he's just having too hard of a time adapting to the NFL game. And this is why it's so important to look at these running back profiles instead of their production in colleges, because their situations change so much from college to the NFL, and situation is what really fuels these fantasy running backs. Now here at 5, we see another disappointment, Damian Harris. Damian Harris is actually a fantastic buy in all dynasty formats right now, in my opinion. I was not on him whatsoever his rookie season, but he's a guy that still has the profile of a 3-down running back. He just has to figure out how to get on the field and get the opportunity. All right, now here at 6, we have Justin Hill, who was everyone's favorite 0 RB candidate in 2019. Obviously, nothing ever came from it. Justin Hill was probably the most athletic running back in this draft class, at least from a SPARQ score consideration. And yeah, we look at him going into 2020. He's not only behind Mark Ingram, now he's behind J.K. Dobbins, and maybe even he's still behind Gus Edwards. He was not able to beat him out for the RB2 spot in 2019. Now here at 7, a running back that I did not draft at all, but he did see his value rise after his rookie season, and I'm still going to continue to avoid this running back and continue to avoid any running back with this profile coming out of college because, yes, they can be good for an NFL team, but they cannot be good for your fantasy team, and this is Devin Singletary. The thing with Devin Singletary is, yes, maybe he will be a low-end RB2, but why am I going to go out there and pay a low-end RB2 price for Devin Singletary when the most he will ever be is a low-end RB2? He's hilariously small. Josh Allen is going to be the guy getting the rushing touchdowns for that team, very similar to how Cam Newton vultured a bunch of rushing touchdowns from Jonathan Stewart in Carolina. So you do not want an undersized running back on a team that has a rushing quarterback. It's not really made to go well. Now here at 8, Alexander Mattison, a guy that has a ton of dynasty hype lately. He showed very well in the limited opportunity that he had in 2019, yet it's hard to project him going forward with Dalvin Cook there. Obviously, he's just a premier handcuff running back at this point, and you're not going to be able to start him unless we see a Dalvin Cook injury. Now at 9, Benny Snell, pretty much a grinder running back, a very average running back, and I think he could still be a decent acquisition in a points per carry league, but you have to understand that if you're going to add him, don't go out there and try to trade for him. Just make sure you have him on your watch list. If he hits that waiver wire, he's got to pick up. Here at 10, a guy that I was pounding the drum for everyone to go out there and buy earlier this offseason, but now the team brings in Antonio Gibson, and Bryce Love is pretty much just dead weight at this point. I still think he's worth the roster spot, but sadly, I thought I was going out there and buying a future starting running back at a hilariously low price earlier this offseason, and in reality, I was just buying a very low price backup running back, and yeah. Now, let's go to the 2020 draft class, and let's start to compare them. So we see Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the 1 spot compared to Josh Jacobs at last year's 1 spot, and I'm going to give the edge to Clyde Edwards-Helaire here just because Clyde Edwards-Helaire may not necessarily profile as a better prospect, but we have to understand that we're not necessarily trying to build an NFL team here. What we are trying to do is we are trying to determine who's going to score the most fantasy points, and in Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a clear tier ahead of Josh Jacobs in Dynasty. Now, Miles Sanders versus Jonathan Taylor, this is where it gets interesting because both of these guys have 3-down potential and they're both running behind great offensive lines. I think I'm going to give the edge here to Miles Sanders just because we understand that he has that passing role down in Philadelphia. And with Jonathan Taylor, maybe he has to give some up to Nyheim Hines. Now at 3, we see DeAndre Swift versus David Montgomery. I mean, this is where the class disparity begins to really widen, and David Montgomery compared to DeAndre Swift is kind of laughable at this point. DeAndre Swift is a premier pass-catching running back, and at the same time, he has the size to handle a full workload, and he has the explosion to break off big plays, and he's playing in a better offense than Chicago. So what are we really discussing here? DeAndre Swift is worth significantly more than David Montgomery. Here at 4, we see Darrell Henderson versus J.K. Dobbins. Guys, the gap is just continuing to wide. J.K. Dobbins is significantly better at running the football than Darrell Henderson. He's a better pass catcher than Darrell Henderson. He's in a better situation, and he's in for a larger workload. I mean, there's nothing really to compare there. Now at 5, Damian Harris, Cam Akers. I mean, I feel like I'm just beating the dead horse, but we have to understand that this is why this video is important. We have to go out there, and I understand that most people think that these rookie running backs are overvalued. Guys, you have to understand, yes, you're paying a premier price for Cam Akers. It doesn't matter if he's RB5 in this draft class. If he was in last year's draft class, he would have been RB3. I mean, you have to understand that just because we are in the midst of a great, possibly historic running back draft class doesn't mean that you should feel that these guys are being overvalued. That you should understand that they're being appropriately valued, and if you're paying up for a 3-down running back that has long-term potential in Dynasty. Now at 6, we see Keyshawn Vaughn versus Justice Hill, and y'all know I think Keyshawn Vaughn is hilariously overrated in Dynasty, but at the end of the day, Keyshawn Vaughn is a 3-down running back, and he has a role on his team, whereas Justice Hill is I believe he was a day 3 running back with no role in sight. Here at 7, A.J. Dillon versus Devin Singletary. And I know I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but I would much rather have A.J. Dillon than Devin Singletary in Dynasty. What is Devin Singletary's upside? It's just someone go to the comments. It doesn't matter that they drafted Zach Moss. I don't understand why anybody would ever truly believe that Devin Singletary could ever be a high-end RB2 or a low-end RB1 in Dynasty, whereas A.J. Dillon has that capability if Aaron Jones is not in Green Bay next year. Now at 8, we see Zach Moss and Alexander Mattison. This may be the first spot that I think I would rather have Alexander Mattison than Zach Moss. Zach Moss, similar to Devin Singletary. What is the upside? What are y'all shooting here for? And Zach Moss is going to be a guy that I don't own on any Dynasty teams. Now at 9, Benny Snell, Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson has some explosion that Benny Snell would ever dream of having in his entire lifetime. Antonio Gibson, a clear pick. He's actually a guy that does have RB1 upside, and he's a guy that's going at a reasonable price in Dynasty drafts right now. Now to round us out, Bryce Love versus Darrington Evans. Much rather have Darrington Evans. Round 3 NFL draft running back. Derrick Henry, questionable for his long-term value in Tennessee. Maybe we see Darrington Evans take that role in 2021. But thanks, guys. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video. Really hope y'all go out there and aren't afraid to pay for these 2020 rookie running backs. They are worth the price. This class is fantastic compared to really any class you look throughout the past 10 years.